What's poppin' YouTube? Is your boy Loho Plays. We are back for some Kalos review, some Kalos draft review for the PBO, Season 4 PBO, Pokemon Battle Organization, Pokemon Draft Style, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully you're here from a short, maybe, but we're gonna actually go in depth from these teams specifically, as well as in the description you can check out all the content creators that we have for the league in the Unova division, as well as the Kalos division. I'm obviously going through the whole Kalos division, and throughout this season I'll be doing like week on week off with the Frederick Klefkis reviewing games. So you definitely want to stick around to all the PBO content here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very entertaining stuff. We have a lot more content creators, so it'll be very interesting to see how everyone does. I also am playing in the Unova Conference as the New York Naked, so make sure you check that out as well. But yeah, today we're going to be going through all of the Kalos teams. I should have grabbed water before this because it's going to be a long video. We are going to have timestamps, so make sure you check those out if you really care. But we're going to go in depth on these teams, what I like about them, what I don't like about them. Ultimately, I have kind of some hit or misses that are like the basics of draft. You don't necessarily have to hit all these marks, but these are some of the ideals, at least from more experienced people that know what they're looking for in draft. So first of all is Fire, Water, Grass Core, Fairy, Dragon, Steel Core, Hazard Setter, as well as Hazard Control. Momentum and T-Spike Absorber are like the main 5 that I'm looking for in terms of looking for like a really basic but also good team. There's obviously a lot more to it in draft, but yeah, we'll get into that when we get into that. But yeah, without further ado, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, stay tuned, and yeah, let's just hop into it. I might have to grab some water at some point, but first off, the Kalos Conference. We have the City Sableye. Their team is Baxcalibur, Scizor with Tera Captain options. Give me 2 seconds. Tera Captain options of Tera Steel, Fire, and Electric. Grimmsnarl, Masquerain, Lilligant, Cloyster, Typhlosion, Hisui, Okidogi, Chimecho, Furret, and Mudsdale. So obviously looking at my little checklist, fire type we have Typhlosion, Hisui. Water we have Cloyster. Grass we have Lilligant. Fairy is going to be Grimmsnarl. Dragon is Baxcalibur. Steel is obviously Scizor. Hazard Setters we can see on the right. Stealth Rock, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, not bad. Even Sticky Web is pretty good because this team is actually somewhat slow, so it does like Sticky Web support. And then in terms of Hazard Control, I think Cloyster loses Rapid Spin, so I think it's Defog Scizor and is Tidy Up Furret. I think those are the only 2. And then Momentum, you can see there's a couple U-turners, U-turn Scizor, Masquerain, and Furret. But overall there's not too much momentum. Maybe someone in here gets Baton Pass. I think Chimecho does get Wish Baton Pass. Obviously it would all be dry passes besides that point. And then T-Spike Absorber is Okidogi. So overall this one's not looking too bad. In terms of like type charts and everything, you are going to see that there is a pretty bad flying weakness. Obviously that's why there's some importance in having a electric type, or at least having a steel type. You know, but you do have a steel type which would normally resist flying, but of course it's Scizor, which is bug steel, meaning that it's neutral to flying. So flying could be pretty problematic for this team. Rock typing also potentially could be problematic. It looks like there's a lot of weaknesses here, but Okidogi is actually a really powerful way of dealing with rock types, so I don't think it's too bad of an issue. And also there seems to be somewhat of a fire type weakness, especially since Typhlosion and Hisui really can't take hits all that well. I would definitely consider that this fire type weakness is pretty bad, but it all depends on your matchup. So you know, there are going to be weeks where basically someone has a fire type and this team's going to get wrecked, and there's going to be weeks where, you know, someone has like a more, you know, naturally defensive fire type and it's not going to be as bad. I do think some natural synergies. Obviously Baxcalibur is really powerful with Scale Shot's Swords Dance. It does allow it to set up easier now that Grimmsnarl can set up screens for it. Scizor obviously really powerful defogger, but I do think, because from my understanding Scizor is like the only really powerful defogger here, Scizor is gonna really want most of its you know, move slots to not be defog. So that is a bit problematic, I'd say, in hazard control. But Scizor is very powerful. I mean, Tera Steel is probably gonna make, you know, make it hit a lot stronger. I like Tera Fire because obviously Scizor's only weakness is fire, and electric isn't too bad either. I think that's more for like wall breaking purposes. There's probably some type that I'm Probably like bulky waters maybe to allow you to break through. I do think potentially having a different Tera captain option. I can't remember if Typhlosion is yellow or green, but sometimes going for lower tier Teras would not be bad, because Scizor kind of like, if Scizor ends up playing a defensive role one week, then your Tera is not like, you know, it's not worthless, but it's a little bit less effective, because I think Scizor also lost Roost. Don't quote me on that. I'm gonna look that up actually. Might as well. I have another monitor here. Because I think I'm almost certain Scizor lost Roost. Could be wrong though. Yep, it did lose Roost. Meaning that like if it's ever defensive one week, it doesn't have great ways of getting back its recovery. But yeah, I do think that's cool. I like Grimmsnarl screens because it basically gives Cloyster chances to shell smash, Lilligant chances to set up. There's a lot of setup options that Grimmsnarl allows because it can set up screens. Obviously, you know, there are counterplay to screens like Defog as well as Brick Break. That's another thing, is like for this team, if you set up spikes and stuff, if someone just hazard sacks you back, you kind of have to defog with Scizor, so you lose some advantage in that way. This also, like if you look at this squad, there's really not too much momentum, only U-turn on Scizor. I don't really expect Masquerain for it to come that often. I do like Okidogi. I think that's gonna end up being a really cool Pokemon. I'm excited to see how it works out. Typhlosion and Hisui, also eruptions are no joke. That is a really powerful Pokemon. But yeah, overall, I don't think this team's bad. It also has an electric immunity. That's really important too, because electric types just volt switching all over you is obviously very, very annoying. But yeah, I think I kind of went through everything that seems really powerful. I think Okidogi could be really cool with bulk upsets, but also, you know, really hard hitting with this attack stat. And I think under Sticky Webs it might be pretty powerful. Chimecho also is like one of the few Pokemon that get like Heal Bell, which is pretty interesting. It can wish and do stuff like that. Furret, I really don't know how often it comes because it's so weak, but it can tidy up. And then Mudsdale is you know, pretty good defensively, especially if you run stamina, but obviously is a little bit weak on the special side. But I do like Mudsdale as a ground type. So overall, this oh sorry, I just pulled up my Discord, but overall I think this draft really isn't that bad. It's got a few weaknesses potentially that these changes could be made, but it's really not bad. Like, it checks off most of the, you know, the things I listed. It's not like, you know, crazy good, but it's not bad either. So I think I'd probably put it somewhere around, I'd maybe say 7 to 8 out of 10 overall. But yeah, that is going to be the City Sableye. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, next up we have the New Jersey Dracos. Their team consists of Dragapult, Tornadus T as their Tera captain, with Tera options of Flying, Steel, and Fairy. Really like those typings. Crocodile, Vikavolt, Girder, Enamorus, Slowking, Sorina, Revroom, and Clefairy. I'm going to go through my set of 5 again, but obviously, you know, I think you can realistically miss out on these cores and still have a solid team. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what teams actually prevail without having these cores and which teams stay around. But yeah, if we look through, this is an example of like, you know, this has water and grass, but it doesn't necessarily have fire. They do, I believe, have Fairy, Dragon, and Steel. They also have a few hazard setters, Crook and Clefairy. Clefairy is realistically not coming every week, but Toxic Spikes on Revroom is also kind of nice, as well as Sticky Web support with Vikavolt. Vikavolt is actually really, really powerful, especially with agility. Hazard Control, I believe, is Girder with Defog and Serena with Rapid Spin. Not bad. Definitely usable. Momentum, pretty good momentum users. U-turn, Serena, Tornadus T, and Dragapult. That's really important because those Tornadus T and Dragapult, I feel like, are coming most matches, as well as Volt Switch on Vikavolt can be really powerful. T-Spec Absorber obviously is going to be Revroom, and I think Revroom is honestly a really good Steel type and a good Poison type. I do really like that Pokemon. But yeah, we can see from the type charts a little bit of a fire weakness, ice weakness too, but Slowking and Revroom are honestly really solid ice resist, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Flying also seems to be a weakness, as well as Ghost. basically, like, I have to acknowledge these because, you know, someone can basically run a Scarf option for Ghost Fairy, Flying, Fire, whatever. You know, Slowking is good for the ice one because it does get Regenerator, but basically if your team is getting hit with these type of moves that your entire team is weak to, either neutral or it's hitting a Pokemon that doesn't get recovery, essentially your team will get whittled down. These typings are going to be very, very important. But yeah, besides that, this team is also pretty fast. I would say it probably has the strongest wall breakers in Dragapult, and Enamorus are extremely, extremely powerful. So, and I do like the Regenerator core of Slowking and Tornadus T. Slowking also getting Chilly Reception is another great way of getting momentum. So this team is going to really, really hit hard. Dragapult obviously being super versatile, super speedy. Tornadus T, I like the Tera options too because I like the idea of being Steel and then you're not weak to heavy rocks on entry. Meaning you don't have to run heavy duty boots every week. Croak I do like as Moxie Sweeper, really powerful Pokemon. Vikavolt again, Sticky Web and Agility, really good Pokemon. Girder is actually, I feel like, a little bit underrated. Eviolite Girder can actually wall a lot of physical attackers. It doesn't have any recovery, but all three of its abilities are pretty solid, and it's probably a pretty decent defogger or bulk up setter. Enamorus, especially with Contrary, I mean, I've seen that thing used before. It's really, really powerful. Slowking, it's just good. Serena, I also find to actually be pretty strong. Its Queenly Majesty ability is a bit unique, but it also can be useful at times. Meaning you'll never get like prioritied on, and you can U-turn. Rapid Spin is really nice, and it actually hits quite hard. I mean, 120 attack is really powerful. River Filter, you know, really unique too, as well as Overcoat, allowing you to switch into Spore is really cool. Clefairy, I realistically don't see coming that often. Just because, I mean, with Eviolite it's not terrible, but it's, you know, not the same as Clefable for sure. But yeah, I think I kind of acknowledged everything that I did want to acknowledge. I think the Tera types on Tornti are actually pretty good, and I think, yeah, as I said before, this team's gonna hit like a truck. I'd probably say I'd probably give this a 9 out of 10. 8 or 9 out of 10, I'd say. Very strong looking team. Like, there's a lot of threats on this that I don't want to play against personally. So yeah, from there, let's move forward. All right, next up we have the Tottenham Hoothoots. I think I always mispronounce that, like Toten. I don't know, I'm sorry. It's actually crazy because I literally talk to PBO Joe like literally all the time. That's like his little nickname for League. But yeah, they have Iron Treads, Salamence, Torterra with Tera options, I believe, of Grass, Rock, and Fire. Torterra is an absolute monster, by the way. Really like that Tera option. Sableye, Vespiquen, Slowking, Galar, Rotom Wash, Greninja, Drifblim, and Electric. Which is the pre-evolution of Electros. So again, I'm going to go through my little checklist. Fire, Water, Grass, and again, as I said before, it's not essential that you have these, but these are just like basics of having a good team. But Fire, Water, Grass, obviously missing a Fire type. Fairy, Dragon, Steel, also missing a Fairy type. Hazard Setters, honestly really good hazard setting options. Stealth Rocked, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes, these are all extremely, extremely good. And then for hazard control, I believe Drifblim gets Defog, and I think Vespiquen gets Defog, and of course Iron Treads gets Rapid Spin. Also a pretty decently fast team. I like Greninja on this team as well. And then Momentum, obviously really good Volt Switchers as well as U-Turn. I think these are actually pretty solid options, except for Electric. I think the Electric, the guy, is really not going to come that often. It's basically like, you know, Electros is a really solid Pokemon. I don't know how powerful Electric is with Eviolite. I know someone tried to draft it last season, but I never saw a game. So it would be interesting to see how well it does, but I think it's just a lot weaker, and I think it gets a lot less coverage. So yeah, I feel like Eel is really not that great, but, you know, it does provide another Electric resist, which I think this team wanted. So but yeah, looking at this squad, Iron Treads, you know, very, very powerful Pokemon, booster energy, all sorts of stuff. Really solid Pokemon. Salamence, Dragon Dance, Moxie Sweeps. Can also be defensive, especially with Intimidate. It doesn't get access? Does it get access to Roost? I think someone told me the other day it does. Let me check that. I'm like almost certain someone told me that. Yep, it does get Roost. That's really powerful. Tyranitar I think is a little bit, or Tyranitar. Torterra I think is a little bit one-dimensional of like either you run Shell Smash or you don't know what you're doing with it. I mean, it can run some like weird body press stuff, but like, yeah, you're pretty much always running Shell Smash. Sableye, really good Prankstermon. Vespiquen, I actually really like Vespiquen. It's like surprisingly extremely bulky and it does have access to Toxic too. So I do like it, you know, heavy duty boots, not bad. Slowking Galar, obviously chilly reception, really good momentum, and it's a great Pokemon. Also gets rid of T-Spikes for this team. Rotom Wash, great water and electric typing, has great resistances, and Volt Switch is great. Greninja is super powerful because Battle Bond is allowed. So Greninja is a really powerful Pokemon. Drifblim is actually more bulky than you think. Depending on how you EV it, the thing is actually a beast, especially since it gets Strength Sap now. Really powerful Pokemon. And then Eel at the end. I'm not going to acknowledge Eel until he comes to a game, then I'll respect him enough. But yeah, this team, it seems like it does have some ice weaknesses, but obviously Torterra can Tera into rock or fire, which obviously helps in that case. Does have some weaknesses, I'd say, to also Dragon, because I mean it does have one resist, but also, you know, everything it hits for neutrally or super effectively, as well as fairy types. No, Slowking Galar covers fairy types very well, especially with treads. Some dark type weaknesses, obviously you can see the weaknesses here. I'm just acknowledging them because, you know, as the coach of this team, you want to be known of what your weaknesses are, so you can try to, you know, counter against people that are just gonna like dragon spam you, dark spam you, you know, fairy spam. Try to prepare as much as you can. But yeah, obviously some ghost dark weaknesses, as well as I would say dragon weaknesses for sure, because you know, once treads is gone, then your team is open up to dragon types, Dracos and all sorts of stuff. So I do really like this team. I think it's like a mix of balance and offense, which I do like. That's like my kind of preferred playstyle. You know, Iron Tread, Salamence, Torterra, they're all like kind of bulky, but they do a lot of damage too. And then you have some utility mons, Sableye, Slowking, Vespiquen. Rotom Wash is like that middle kind of bulky, but also does heavy damage. Greninja, obviously really powerful. Sweeper, especially with battle bonds, like you can basically have your whole team be designed around like getting some chip off, and then Torterra or Greninja coming in the end and just sweeping you. So I do really like this team. I think there are some weaknesses here, but I think, you know, this team can push through. It's not as scary looking as on paper, but I do like it. I would probably say it's closer to a 7 to 8 out of 10. You know, again, some weaknesses, but I do like it a lot. Also, I forgot to acknowledge, you know, two really good spin blockers in Sableye and Drifblim. I know I'm like basically acknowledging like the basics of draft, you know, not hitting every mark, but you know, rapid spin, good options to prevent rapid spin as well with Sableye and Drifblim, which this team likes because it can set up a lot of hazards too. So that even like hazards, setting up a lot of hazards could potentially help this team sweep in the end game, which I think is what it wants. So that is the Tottenham Hoothoots. Let's move on to the next one. All right, next we have the Santa Cruz Swadloons. They have Como and Polion as their Tera captain, with Tera options of, let me see, water, fairy, and flying. I do like those typings. I do really actually like Empoleon a lot. Wheezing Galar, Hatrium, Swadloon, which is super cool. Hoopa Unbound, which is such a cool Pokemon. It is hard to use though. Weavile, Palossand, Decidueye, Carbink, and Fletchinder. Yeah, I'm gonna go through my, you know, 5 little basics, and then we'll go through the team actually. So fire, water, grass, I do believe we have. Fairy, dragon, steel, we have. Hazard setters, we have a lot of stealth rock users. 1 spiker, 1 T-spiker, it's not terrible. Hazard control, I think Empoleon does not have defog, but Wheezing Galar has defog. Hatrium has magic bounce. and Decidueye also has defog. I think Fletchinder might have defog too. So a lot of hazard control options. I really like that. Momentum, only 2 U-turn users, which is a bit unfortunate, but you know, it's not terrible. T-Spike Absorber is Wheezing Galar, but depending on the weeks when it runs Levitate, you can still T-Spike on it. But I mean, Hatcherium as a magic bouncer could, you know, easily deal with that. So looking at this team also has a little bit of speed. I mean, it's a little bit on the slower end, but it does have Weavile. It's kind of a high a jump in speed tiers from 125 to 85. Yeah, it's kind of a lot, but you know what? Crazy how Fletchinder 84 speed and it's like an NFE is the 3rd fastest Pokemon. But obviously this team has Swadloons, so it can set up Sticky Web. Also, why is Swadloon stats like kind of decent? 90 defense, 80 special defense, and HP of 55? Like with Eviolite, that's probably not bad. Yeah, I mean, besides Sticky Web. Wait, why is it saying that this thing doesn't get Sticky Web? It gets Sticky Web, right? Hold up, pause. We need to do some investigative journalism right now. There's no way this thing doesn't. Okay, it does have Sticky Web. Okay, this thing is outdated or whatever. So Swadloon does have Sticky Web. That's very useful for this squad. Obviously you can see the weaknesses here, you know, Ice, Flying, Ghost, Steel, whatever. I think it has, you know, the whole team is kind of slow. I think it really does want Sticky Web. I like the fact that Weavile's here because it gives it a great speed tier and really can do some damage. I really love Hoopa Unbound. I mean, look at the stats on this thing. Attack 160, 170 special attack, 130 special defense. Only thing that's bad about it is its speed, and once you get up Sticky Web, this thing is really powerful. Yeah, I really actually do like this team. And Empoleon being the Tera captain, it's, you know, water, fairy, flying. I feel like it's okay. I mean, it's not bad, but also like when I look at the other team, it's like, man, who else do I really want to Tera here? So I do understand Empoleon Tera there, because you can't Tera Hoopa. I think you might be able to Tera Weavile, but it's also kind of on the frailer end, which, you know, Empoleon gives you good defensive options in terms of Tera. So, but Pummel, I also just going through the team for the last little bit. Pummel, I really love. Bulletproof, Soundproof, Overcoat, all of these abilities can be useful depending on the matchup, as well as like Boom Burst, freaking Klinger Soul Blaze is banned for this season, but I mean, this thing can be special, it can be physical, you can run Belly Drum sets, Scale Shot, Swords Dance. This thing is actually a monster. Bulk Up options too. It's really powerful, actually. People sleep on it a lot. You can even run some like Iron Defense, Body Press sets, all sorts of shenanigans. I really like this Pokemon. It has great coverage too. It just misses the mark of like, it wants to pick up KOs that sometimes it just doesn't pick up. So that's the only bad part about Como. But Empoleon, obviously new to this season, competitive, really good for like Intimidate. Even like Accidental Intimidate. Also has access to Flip Turn now, Roost, Stealth Rocks, really good rocker actually. Wheezing Galar, I think the abilities are just super awesome, and it's a great Pokemon. Hatcherium, Magic Bounce, shenanigans, but also I think it might get Trick Room. Which, you know, this team under Trick Room could operate. Yeah, it does get Trick Room. Hoopa Unbound also gets Trick Room. Weavile, Palossand, great Stealth Rockers. I think I've already kind of talked about these. Weavile with knockoff now is like absolutely disgusting. So this thing, after you Swords Dance once, can basically sweep teams. Palossand, especially since a lot of teams seem to be weak to Ice this season. So definitely something to look out for. Palossand, not a bad Stealth Rocker, as well as Rapid Spin Immunity. Decidueye, another Rapid Spin Immunity, does get Roost and Defog. Pretty good Pokemon. Not bad. You can run it a different kind of ways. Carbink, I do like Carbink for all sorts of shenanigans, but I will not reveal that because he's also on my team. But Carbink is pretty interesting. I like that Pokemon. Fletchinder, Flame Body, Gale Wings. I mean, someone tried to bring this like last season when we forced everyone to have an NFE. It's, I think, was it Swadloons that drafted it actually? Might have been. It's not bad with Eviolite, but also like if you run Eviolite, then you want heavy duty boots, and if you run heavy duty boots, you want Eviolite. It's a weird Pokemon like that, but it does have some niche and some certain matchups, and it is quite fast. So you can get some fast Will-O-Wisps off. So yeah, I don't think this one is too bad. I do like this squad. Excuse me. Yeah, I think Koopa Unbound is just so freaking cool. It's hard to use, but it's such a strong Pokemon. If you pair it up really well, it can put in a lot of work. Trick Room, Swadloons, Sticky Web, all sorts of stuff like that. And even the times when it doesn't pick up the KO, if you get up hazards, which this team has a lot of options for Stealth Rocks, you whittle your opponent's team down. Maybe just bring this in as Choice Scarf. It just goes through teams. So I do like the Santa Cruz Swadloons team. I feel like I'm kind of biased because I'm like giving everyone good team reviews, but that's just the way it is. I would probably give this a 7 or 8. So yeah, let's continue forth. All right, next up we have the Toronto Staraptors. Oh, sorry about my alarm. Let's turn that off. Okay. They have Volcarona, Munkidori, Sinistra, Electros as their Tera captains with Electric Fairy and Steel. Delibird, Vaporeon, Tinkaton, Cyclizar, Hawlucha, and Probass as another Tera captain with Tera, Steel, Fairy, and Grass. This team's, typings look honestly pretty solid. I mean, I know this isn't everything. Obviously, every team has weaknesses. Ghost is a little bit scary because, Poltergeist is back in this season. It can be pretty scary. But I like all the Mons that they chose. There's a lot of interesting Mons on here. Munkidori, Sinistra. Really interested to see how they'll do. Having Eel as a Tera captain is also very interesting because obviously it's not like, sometimes it does like kind of hit hard, and then Fairy and Steel gives you like some better resists depending on what you need from the matchup. And Eel like never dies to one hit. I have it on my team, so I'm a little bit biased. But Delibird, pretty cool Pokemon. Vaporeon, Tinkaton, Cyclizar, Lucha, Propass also is Tera captain. Very interesting. I like Fairy and Grass. Obviously, Fairy is just super powerful. But Propass actually has really good defenses too. I drafted this initially, and then I ended up trading it. But I do like the idea of Propass. But yeah, let me go through my basics list. Fire, Water, Grass. So we do have Volcarona, Fire, Grass is Sinistra, and Bulky Water, Vaporeon. That's really solid. Fairy, Tinkaton, Steel, also Tinkaton, and then Dragon. I think we're missing, nope, Cyclizar. Hazard Setters, we have Stealth Rock and Tinkaton, as well as Propass, and then Spikes and Delibird. I think these are kind of weak Hazard Setters. Not too many options, but it's not terrible. Hazard Control being Delibird with Rapid Spin, Cyclizar with Rapid Spin. Okay, those aren't terrible, but also you're a little bit weak to Spin Block. I think Hawlucha also gets Defog too, so there are some options there. You have 3 options, pretty solid. But I don't think Delibird comes most weeks though, and also Delibird also being weak to Rocks itself means that it's not the greatest hazard control. Momentum, Volt Switch, U-turns, a lot of U-turners in this. I really like that. I am personally love Momentum because if your opponent, is trying to predict you, but you don't have coverage for a certain mon, you just U-turn out and then you bring in something even more deadly. I am excited for that. T-Spike Absorber of Munkidori. So, this passes somewhat of the 5. So, going through this team individually, Volcarona obviously is back. Dance, but doesn't have access to Tera, so most week it's either heavy duty boots or get punished. So this team really does not want hazard set up unless they're running heavy duty boots, then they don't really care, which I think benefits Volcarona a lot this season. Munkidori is actually like decently fast and hits pretty hard. I think in draft it might actually be good. I can't remember if it gets like Nasty Plot and stuff, but the speed stat is also not terrible. I wonder if it gets Nasty. It does get freaking Nasty Plot. That's disgusting. Because it's got decent speed too. This whole team, I mean, Cyclizar, Hawlucha, Munkidori, and Volcarona are very good speed tiers. And then obviously you have like the slower end too. But I'm really excited to see what Munkidori can do. If you don't want to run Toxic Chain, which by the way gives you a 30% chance to badly poison on even your special moves, which is really powerful. To whittle teams down, you can run Frisk, which is super good in terms of you know, knowing you're getting information from your opponent. Sinistra Heat Proof is, you know, the only ability you run. Hospitality doesn't work in singles, but Sinistra with its like Matcha Gotcha ability, Calm Mind, it also blocks Spin. It's really interesting to me. I think this Pokemon, I keep seeing it in like some UU singles and stuff. I think it's actually pretty good. But yeah, we'll see. Electros, I mean, I already told before, always lives a hit, crazy coverage, really great Pokemon. Delibird, Spikes, Lead and such like that, really good Pokemon, as well as, you know, sometimes you can Destiny Bond, take down a Pokemon with you. Vaporeon is a bulky Wish support. I freaking hate Vaporeon because someone used it very well against me. Not going to talk about it though. Tinkaton, I'm never really a fan of Tinkaton. It's actually got like a decent speed for some reason, but the stats are just like so weird to me. I think it's more meant to be like a supportive Pokemon with like T-Wave, Stealth Rock and stuff. And it has, you know, the typing is really solid too. But following that, Cyclizar, you know, Rapid Spin, there is no Shed Tail, but Rapid Spin, Regenerator, U-Turn. I think Cyclizar is actually super underrated. I really love that Pokemon. Followed up by Hawlucha. Hawlucha is just freaking nasty. Hawlucha is like one of those Pokemon where you never think it's like that scary on paper until it like Swords Dances once, and then like somehow it procs its Unburden, and now it's like sweeping you with acrobatics and close combat. Yeah, that Pokemon is just very deadly. I also really like the Probopass Tera. Magnet Pull could have like some niche stuff there. Also gets access to Volt Switch. Stealth Rock too. I really actually like Probopass. I think if I had kept it on my team, I should have also terrored it the way that you know, the Toronto Staraptors is doing, because whenever you terror it, it becomes a lot better Pokemon. You know, Body Press shenanigans too. It does a lot of damage if you're running Body Press, and just takes hit. I mean, the stats are insane. So overall, I think this team is pretty solid. You know, there's nothing too bad about it. Probably give this 7. I mean, on paper it doesn't look that scary, so it's very interesting to see what it will do. I mean, Volcarona is obviously scary, as well as Hawlucha, but the other mons, it's like, I don't know yet. I'll probably give it a 7 or 8 though. So yeah, without further ado, let's keep moving forward. Alright, next up we have the Glamorgan Veil Great Tusks. They have Iron Valiant, Lycanroc Dusk with Tera as their, or Lycanroc Dusk as their Tera captain, with Tera options of Rock, Fighting, and Ghost. Then they have Bramblegast, Yuxi, Sandslash, Alomomola, Gudra Hisui, Salazzle, Volibee, Wigglytuff, and Thundurus. This team, like, when I did like the shorts review of it, gave me the vibe of this team will take your lunch money, give it back to you, and then just to take it again. Like, just for the pure pity of being able to eat your sandwich in front of you and then spit it out. This team looks really disgusting on paper. Very offensive, but also has walls that can take hits. Obviously does have a bit of fairy weakness, which I think is like, you know, the most punishing bit about this, as well as like, you know, the fairy types are a little bit weak to dragon as well. But overall, I think this team is pretty solid. You know, fairy weakness, I would say somewhat weak to dragon as well as ice. But yeah, this team also has really great speed tiers. I think all these Pokemon are a problem and they hit really hard. Iron Valiant, obviously, or we'll go through my little thing. So Fire, Water, Grass, Salazzle, Alomomola, and Bramblegast, Fairy, Dragon, and Steel. So Iron Valiant, Gudra Hisui. Hazard setters, a whole bunch of hazard setters. I mean, look at all those Stealth Rock users: Wigglytuff, Yuxi, Sandslash, Lycanroc Dusk, Spike setters, and Sandslash and Bramblegast. Bramblegast having spikes is huge. T-Spikes on Salazzle as well. Momentum and Volt Switch Thundurus, U-Turn, Volibee, Yuxi. So a little bit lacking on the momentum side of things, but you also have to think, I think Alomomola gets Baton Pass, and so does Wigglytuff. So wishing up Baton, wishing and then Baton Passing and the stuff is very deadly too. T-Spike Absorber obviously being Salazzle too. Yeah, this is, especially Salazzle being the only fairy resist. This team is quite weak to fairy, but I still really like it because it puts on a lot of offense. Iron Valiant with booster energy just hits like a truck. You can run it all sorts of different ways, different weeks, and it's really powerful. Lycanroc Dust, Tough Claws, you know, rock fighting Ghost is disgusting because, I mean, close combats are already boosted by Tough Claws, but then you Tera Fight, it's just actually really powerful. As well as you do get like access to Priority and Excel Rock. I think Excel Rock also is Tough Claws boosted, I think. Not Stone Edge, but Excel Rock is. Brambleghast, Wind Rider, Infiltrator, pretty good abilities too. Wind Rider, surprisingly, I think makes you immune to Hurricane and stuff, which is kind of unique. Brambleghast also blocks Spin and in itself is a Rapid Spinner. Oh, I think that's something I forgot to acknowledge. Hazard Control. Brambleghast is a spinner, Sandslash is a spinner, and Volbeat is a defogger, I think. I mean, Brambleghast being a spinner, I think it's actually a little bit more powerful this season because it does get Poltergeist now. I think it still does get Synthesis, Taunt, Rapid Spin. It's honestly not a bad spinner now. And the stats are like not horrible either. It's even got like a fast speed too. It can be pretty powerful. But yeah, I actually really like Brambleghast. So potentially another Hazard Control might be a problem if like other things are getting, like the thing is like Brambleghast spins, but also it hits Ghost type with things that block spin. It hits super effectively with Poltergeist, so I do like that a lot. Yuxi, very bulky, annoying Pokemon. God, Calm Mind strats are gonna be really annoying to deal with. Stored Power, I think it gets, as well as, and then its signature move to boost its special attack. It can be really powerful. Sandslash is like okay. I mean, it's great spinner. There's decent spinner, decent stealth rocker, can throw off some earthquakes. You know, it loses. I think it gained more coverage, but I think it still loses to some of the basics. I think it doesn't lose to grass types anymore. I think it might have Ice Spinner, and if not, has Gunk Shot. So still a pretty solid Pokemon, especially being in the blue tier. It's not bad. Alomomola as the Wish Baton Passer. Alomomola also gets Flip Turn now, especially with Regenerator. That thing is going to be hard to deal with. Gudra Hisui is like one of those Pokemon where you think it's just like only a defensive Pokemon, and then you see that it has 100 attack and 110 special attack, meaning that it can like actually nuke you if it hits you with a super effective move. Very powerful Pokemon, as well as it does get like knockoff. I don't think this one gets Toxic, but I got some other moves with the DLC, so very strong Pokemon. Salazzle Toxic Sub is absolutely disgusting. I wish I drafted that Pokemon because it's so freaking good, especially with Corrosion, and its speed tier is extremely fast, and I think it also gets Nasty Plot. It can do a lot of damage. And sorry about that, my computer just went to sleep. Volbeat is decent. Defog, I mean, with Eviolite, it's probably not terrible. It also gets everything that Manabuzz gets, so like Toxic, U-Turn, Foul Play, Knockoff, Roost, all that stuff. It's really not that bad. It's probably a pretty good value blue. Maybe should have been worth higher, but we gonna see how good it is, really. Wigglytuff, great for Wish, Baton Pass, you know. Frisk, also a really good ability. Competitive is like because Wigglytuff most of the time is not, you know, going on the offense, but could be niche. Wigglytuff also can set up screens for this team, really powerful. And then like somehow at the end, like, you know, it seemed like it was top heavy, and then you slowly go down and it's like, okay, you know, Gudra Hisui, Salazzle, pretty powerful, and then somehow at the very final pick is Thundurus. Like this thing, Thundurus is a really powerful Pokemon. You can actually run it physical or special. It gets decent coverage, especially if you're running Defiant, you know, for like Intimidators or even Defoggers, you know. You could switch on a Defog, activate the Defiant, and then, you know, you're doing some heavy damage with your physical attack too. Prankster T-Wave is also just super powerful too, so you can also run this thing like somewhat defensively. And I really do like this team. I think I'm leaning towards this team being an 8 or 9. I think the Fairy weakness is a problem, but this thing is gonna deal some damage, so I'm definitely thinking on like the terms of like a 9. But I do really like this team. Like most of it's really fast, and then the slow Pokemon are like really bulky, where they don't care that they're slow. So but yeah, without further ado, let's keep moving forward. Wait, I also have to acknowledge Glamorgan Vale Great Tusk, also the GOAT. His YouTube channel will be in the description below. He's also been really helping out with the league, like, you know, made someone's logo, made like PowerPoint slides for us to basically use as our copy and stuff. Really great guy. So I do want to give him a fat shout out. Really good person. I really hope your season goes well. And yeah, cheers. So I hope maybe my draft review was biased, but I do like the team anyway. If you didn't already help the league, I would have liked the team anyway. So all right, next up is the Ottawa Donphans. I feel like by the end of this video, I'm going to just end up liking everyone's team, even though I had like a lot of critiques going in. So it'll be interesting to see that like maybe this just gets more passively that I love everyone's team. But yeah, maybe just from like an entertainer's perspective, I think it'll be very exciting to see which teams rise and fall. But we do have the Ottawa Donphans. They have Jirachi, Donphan, Dipplin as their Tera captain, which is so freaking interesting. I don't know if it's good, to be honest. If I'm going to be point blank, I don't know if it's good. Teras, Dragon, Steel, and Water. Snorlax, Dusclops, that forms like a really good defensive core, obviously. Azumarill, Breloom, Scyther, Rotom, Heat, Skuntank, and Stantler are their team. They're obviously a little bit weak to flying, but everything else seems to be pretty solid. Yeah, besides that, they have pretty solid resist overall. I wouldn't even say the flying is that bad because you have Rotom, Heat, and Jirachi. So yeah, honestly the typings are pretty solid for this team. In terms of having mostly resist, the team is a little bit slow, but hey, I have a slow team this season too. But Scyther is still pretty fast, and so is Jirachi, but it is on the slower end. So I think this team would have liked a Sticky Web user. But, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Let's go through our little checklist. Fire, Water, Ground, or Fire, Water, Grass. So we do have a Fire type in Rotom, Heat. We have Azumarill as the Water type, and 2 Grass types in Breloom and Dipplin. Fairy, Dragon, Steel. We have Steel as Jirachi, Dipplin for the Dragon, and Azumarill as the Fairy. Hazard Setters and Stealth Rock, Donphan and Jirachi, as well as T-Spikes with Skuntank. Hazard Control is Donphan's Rapid Spin. Does anyone? I don't think Skuntank gets defog anymore, right? Let me double check that. Does not get defog anymore, meaning, interpreting this correctly, that means that Donphan is the only rapid spinner as well as hazard control. I do feel like that's going to end up being quite problematic. Unless I'm missing another hazard spinner, I do think that this team technically needs another hazard spinner because Donphan has no way of reliably recovering, meaning that this team could heavily be punished by hazards. But let's continue moving forward. Momentum, U-Turners, Scyther, Jirachi, Volt Switch, Rotom, Heat is okay. You know, these aren't bad. They're like overall okay. They're not the greatest. T-Spike Absorbers, obviously Skuntank. Pretty good T-Spike Absorber as well. And then moving from that, yeah, I mean, I like Tera Captain Dipplin just because I don't know what it does, but I know it doesn't have access to Leech Seed, so it's really going to struggle dealing damage to things. I think it will live forever, but you need to find ways of like toxicking or doing something so that Dipplin can just sit in on things while they're taking passive damage, because Dipplin has no way of dealing passive damage to Pokemon. So Tera Captain Dipplin, I don't know how long it will stay, but I am excited to see how it will work. So, but I don't think it's like the best for Tera Captain options here. I think potentially even like, I forget what tier Scyther is, but maybe like Tera Scyther and maybe even Tera Dusclops or something like that. Maybe even Tera Snorlax or something like that, I think could be more powerful than just Dipplin, because it allows you to do more things than Dipplin just sitting there in front of someone's face. But maybe I am a little bit prejudiced against Dipplin because I don't think he's that great of a Pokemon. But, you know, with Eviolite, he's super bulky. But obviously your opponents will know that, so they'll bring knockoffs. So it's definitely just something to be careful about. We'll go through each Pokemon. I really love Jirachi, great Steel type, U-Turn, can do a whole bunch of things, set up Stealth Rocks, Calm Mind, Store Power, great coverage too. Excuse me, I really love this Pokemon. I think it's a great Pokemon. Donphan, I do like as a spinner, also gets knockoff, Ice Spinner, Earthquake. It's a pretty solid Pokemon. Does have its weaknesses though, very slow, and the special defense is quite bad. But defensively it's pretty solid. And it can do quite some damage if you like Rapid Spin and then like start spamming Earthquake. It can honestly put in some damage even if it's uninvested. Dipplin, as I said before, really is like a nothing burger. There's just nothing there besides just like meat and a patty. Because I don't really know what it does besides just sit on people and like try to deal damage. So I think Dipplin might struggle this season, but we'll see. Snorlax, Dusclops. Obviously Snorlax can run some like weird what is it, belly drum sets, but it is really slow. So potentially maybe like Snorlax and Trick Room could be really powerful, but it'll be hard to get going. Also, I think it lost access to like Toxic, Thunder Wave, all that stuff, so it really doesn't have any way of like statusing people, but it can take hits and it does have good enough coverage to do damage to stuff and a high enough attack stat. You know, obviously it's weak to burn, but you could even run like Facade some weeks. Dusclops, really great Pokemon. Obviously with Eviolite, it's going to tank literally every hit. You can even run like Trick Room, Will-O-Wisp, Nightshade, always some great options. Azumarill really does hit hard with huge power. Most of the time you're always going to run huge power. There are some like very niche techs where you run Thick Fat and Sap Sipper, but you know, Azumarill without huge power is doing like 0 damage. So yeah, it's a little bit one-dimensional in that sense, but I do like Azumarill, pretty powerful one. Breloom, I freaking love Breloom because Loaded Dice Technician Bullet Seed hits like a truck. You can run some cool stuff with this. You can even run Spore. The speed stat is quite low though, but you can Spore some walls, threaten out some walls. A Spore and a Focus Punch, that'd be dope. But yeah, I do really like Breloom actually. I was gonna draft it, but then I was like, man, this thing is so slow, I'm never gonna use it. But yeah, it does hit like a truck if it's fast enough. It also got some good coverage options in like Bulldoze and Rock Tomb too, that are all Technician boosted. So Breloom is actually not that bad, it's just slow. That's the only problem with it. Scyther, I did not even know this until watching Abbotsford Agron's video. Scyther Technician Dual Wing Beat does like crazy amounts of damage now, because now it gets access to Dual Wing Beat again, so it's actually really powerful, especially with, you can run Eviolite, or you can run Heavy Duty Boots, and you can run Swords Dance, blah blah blah. Really, really powerful Pokemon. Rotom Heat, Electric Fire. This thing, you know, Nasty Plot, Will-O-Wisp, Thunder Wave, Volt Switch, Overheat. Really powerful mon. I really love Rotom Heat. It's a little bit one-dimensional in what it can do, but it has just enough moves where it can keep you guessing. Next up is Skuntank. Aftermath is a great ability. I think it's a really solid ability, actually. You can run like some explosion stuffs. Sucker Punch Priority is also really solid for this team. And it has good coverage in like fire moves for steel types too, so. And then finally is Stantler. Stantler with Eviolite is probably like okay at best, but I really don't know how strong it is because I've never seen anyone effectively use it. But it will be interesting to see what it can do. I mean, probably with Eviolite, it's not bad. Also, I thought Stantler was Psychic type. I've been playing too much Sweltering Sun. It's only normal type. That's crazy to me. But yeah, Stantler is like also, I feel like I'm on that like rarely comes if ever. But the rest of the team is pretty solid. Again, weak on hazards, but I do like this team. It has a lot of offense, and I think you can actually use Trick Room pretty effectively. I just wish I had one more Trick Room setter. Maybe Jirachi is the Trick Room setter though. Because like Azumarill under Trick Room, Breloom under Trick Room probably wrecks. Maybe even Snorlax Donphan. Wait, maybe this is actually a solid Trick Room team. But Trick Room is kind of hard to get going because obviously as soon as you use it, you lose that turn, and then you U-turn or whatever, you switch into your guy, you lose another turn. So it's pretty hard to get going, but eh. I think I already went through specifically what everyone does. So we will go ahead and move on to the next one. Oh, I forgot to give this a rating. I will give this one a 7. 7 out of 10. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, next one is the Pennsylvania Pyroars, and I apologize, I'm not doing their logo any justice by making it clear right now, but their team is Ursaluna, Torkoal, Kilowattrel, Typhlosion, Beartic, Walking Wake, Nickelstack, Knucklestack, Lucario. So I also updated this for week 2. I think I also did that for Santa Cruz Swadloons. I think I forgot to address that, but Lucario, Dachshund as their Tera captain, which is Tera, Fairy, Steel, and Fire. Not bad. Artibax, and then Glamet. So this is obviously like the formation of like somewhat of a Sun team. I think I'm like really critical of Sun teams because, you know, they're extremely reliant on Sun, and then they don't care about like any of their weaknesses because as long as they have Sun up, they're fine. So I really have a hard time judging this one, but I don't necessarily like the Sun team, which is a little bit harsh to say. Because like when I look at this team, I'm like, hold up. Your water weaknesses, you know, besides Walking Wake, you have no water. You have no water resist or immunity, which like water spam is, you know, almost every team has a water type, and it's really hard to deal with like offensive water types for this team, you know, besides Walking Wake, and Walking Wake can get tripped. And then you also see like, you know, Fighting type does the same thing. Obviously Doshbun is there. But you know, it basically takes like one coverage move and you hit like almost half the team. Really weak to Psychic as well as ground. There's no ground, you know, only Kilowattrel being the ground immunity, and most ground types get access to Stone Edge. Is really scary because some Mons can just run Choice Band Earthquake and just do crazy amounts of damage to this team. I also think like it's a bit anti-synergistic to have Beartic, who, you know, likes Swift Swim but is never really gonna like Sun, be on a Sun team. I also think Kilowattrel is a little bit anti-synergistic because in Hurricane or in Sun, your Hurricanes even have reduced what am I trying to say? Reduced accuracy. Yeah, they're 50% now. You know, in Sun. Walking Wake, obviously very strong, you know, Sun user, but you can't just win games just with Torkoal and Walking Wake. Your opponent will find a way to get rid of your Sun, and then capitalize on your team's weaknesses. So I do think in that regard, this team is a little bit weak. I also don't like that Knacklestack isn't one of the Tera captains, because Knacklestack really loves the option to Tera, because on its own, just being a rock type, it's still really weak to, you know, it's only a Knacklestack, even with Eviolite. You know, it's bulky, but, you know, rock has a lot of weaknesses. I do like Doshbun being a Tera captain, but I think overall, I think Knacklestack being a Tera captain, and then potentially, you know, grabbing another Tera option. I think you can do, yeah, you can technically do 2 greens. So you could do Knacklestack and Typhlosion. I think those would be better Tera options than Doshbun. But, you know, yeah, I forgot to go over my basics. Fire, Water, Grass. Obviously, this team is missing a Grass. Fairy, Dragon, Steel. This team is missing a Steel type, and also Hazard Setters. Decent Hazard Setters, you know, Stealth Rock. Glamet can put up some hazards, as well as Knacklestack. Hazard Control, I think, is only Torkoal, right? Torkoal Rapid Spin. So this team is also really weak to hazards too, which, you know, as you have a Sun team, you really don't want to be weak to hazards. Momentum is decent. I know Walking Wake has Flip Turn now. The Kilowattrel has Volt Switch. Not crazy good. I think Doshbun also has Wish Baton Pass, which could be nice. And then this team did pick up a T-Spike Absorber and Glamet, but again, Glamet's not coming to every match, so it's a little bit of a weak T-Spike Absorber. Yeah, I have trouble with some teams because I don't really like them. I think their weaknesses can be really exploitative. I think this team is a little bit slow in the way that like Torkoal needs to come out, and then they need a free switch in to really get things going. I think this team will be difficult to really make work, but I am excited to see what happens. So yeah, that's kind of like my main gist. Now I'm gonna go through like, you know, some what the Pokemon can do. Ursaluna, Guts, Bulletproof, really good abilities. Even Unnerve can sometimes be good. It is really slow though, but can hit pretty hard, as well as take at least 1 or 2 hits. Torkoal, Rapid Spin, South Rocker, gets Earth Power now. You know, I feel like everyone kind of understands what Torkoal does, but also it's really slow, which is quite unfortunate. As well as it sets up the Sun, but then you don't have a great way of switching out. But you could, I mean, there are honestly some neat ways of switching out, but you could run like a Jetpack, I think. Or no, not a Jetpack, the E button. That would be kind of cool. Immediately run E button. That would be pretty cool, actually. The Watchel, really powerful mon, but again, you know, having Sun Up, making your Hurricanes miss more often is pretty scary. But it also has really great abilities, 1 power, Volt Absorb, competitive. It is a really powerful Pokemon, and it is really fast. This team is also decently fast, I will say that, so that is one benefit to this team. Typhlosion, Flash Fire, Blaze, Eruptions, you know, as long as you're full health, which you need to be full health to get off Eruptions, and this team is weak to Hazards, so it's not like a great combination either, but Typhlosion with Eruption does do a lot of damage. Beartic is, you know, it can hit like a truck, but it needs snow support, and, you know, obviously this team doesn't have snow support. Walking Wake, you know, really good for Sun. I think it's really powerful for this team. Obviously, it's one of the main, like, hitters for the squad. I think it should come every week, to be honest, because it's going to do the most damage underneath Sun. Knuckle Stack, as I said before, a little bit weak, but it's probably not bad. Purifying Salt is a great ability. You can't get status, as well as you still have Salt Cure, you know, recover, all that type of shenanigans. Lucario, I think, is a great versatile Pokemon. It's a little bit slow, but it can run Nasty Plot or Swords Dance. You can have, I think it also gets Vacuum Wave now. So it actually has a whole bunch of different options that it can run in terms of being physical or special, and your opponent really has to prep for it, because it can end up sweeping you. Dashbun, Wish, Baton Passer, it's not bad, but it's not like offensively great. Arctibax is, you know, not, even with Eviolite, I feel like it's not that great of a mon. It takes a lot to D-Dance, it takes a lot of support to D-Dance with it, but I do actually really like Clement. Toxic Debris is a really great ability, and even though it's the little guy, you can still just run Sash and guarantee 2 hazards. Spikes or Stealth Rock plus, you know, if someone hits you physically, Toxic Debris is also really solid. So yeah, overall I'd probably give this team a 6 out of 10 comparatively, because yeah, there's a lot of flaws with it. I think it can be offensively strong, but I think it's going to be hard. You're going to have to prepare a lot for your opponents, because they can capitalize on a lot of your team's weaknesses. So but yeah, without further ado, let's keep going forward. Alright, next up we have the Mojave Cacturnes. Also, if you made it this far in this video, please leave a like. I'm actually dying out here. I had to go get some water. My mouth is like so dry, but we're gonna make it through this video, hopefully. But yeah, the Mojave Cacturnes, their squad consists of Goldingo, Cresselia as their Tera captain too, which I really like Cresselia as Tera captain options. They have Tera, Psychic, Poison, and Fairy. Umbreon, Magneton, Articuno, Tyranitar, Fortress, Rabombi, Houndstone, which really works, Sandrush, Tyranitar, or Sandrush, Sandstream, Tyranitar is really cool. Breaksin, and then Cacturne. Yeah, this team does have, or let's go through my five prime things. Fire, Water, Grass. Breaksin is not really a you know, a fire Pokemon, but I mean, maybe. Grass is Cacturne, and there is no water type, which I think is what this team lacks for sure, because you definitely need a water type, because as you can see, this team also really does not take fire hits very well. I mean, Tyranitar is obviously a great fire switch in, but when you have like all these Pokemon being weak to fire, if your opponent has like one coverage move for Tyranitar, it's going to do a lot of damage. But obviously, your opponent still has a breakthrough Umbreon, Cresselia, so we'll see. We'll see how much that fire weakness matters. Fairy, Dragon, Steel, so we have Rabombi. Dragon is no Dragon type, okay. Fairy, Dragon, and then Steel. Goldingo is a Steel type. Fortress also is a Steel type. Hazard setters, you know, Stealth Rock. Yeah, Fortress is just a really great hazard setter. As well as Rabombi can be really nice. There's quite a large speed gap between Rabombi and Cresselia. I will say that's somewhat of a problem, because you do like to run in between, but sometimes these Pokemon are really bulky anyway, so maybe they don't ever really want to run speed. But then also, if you're never running speed, then your opponent can sometimes run Adamant or Modest like on you all the time, which can, you know, in turn do a lot more damage. Momentum, Volt Switch, these are pretty good momentum guys, at least the Volt Switch people are. U-Turn Rabombi is also not bad. Articuno is a really great Pokemon, but it's hard to bring all the time because it requires heavy duty boots. T-Spike Absorber, so also this team does not have a poison type except for Cresselia as one of its Tera options, but also Cresselia has Levitate, Meaning, well, I mean, Fortress can always come in to Rapid Spin, but I do really think this team needs a Poison type because, you know, Toxic Spikes can be really, really deadly for whittling a team down. But, you know, even though I'm saying this, you know, this team could still prevail each and every week because, I mean, they have 1, 2, 3 Steel types. So maybe they don't care about the Toxic. I mean, maybe, you know, we'll see. But, yeah, being vulnerable to D-Spikes could be a problem for this team. But besides that, let's see. Ooh. Ooh, excuse me. Pretty big water weakness too. I think Cacturne is realistically not a water resist with water absorb. I think, you know, Cacturne is already really frail and it's really slow, meaning if Cacturne is meant to be your water immunity, the following turn most likely it dies to something, unfortunately. Also seems to be a little bit rock weak, but these steel types are actually pretty good for rock types. So besides that, we'll go through the actual team members. Gholdengo is a great Pokemon. I think for this team specifically, it's really, really good because it pairs well with Magneton, and Magneton can magnet pull steel types that Gholdengo doesn't like to deal with. Gholdengo, Nasty Plot, Recover, just really, really powerful. Good as Gold is the most broken ability I've ever seen. I didn't realize that you can't get Leech Seeded, you can't defog on it, you can't do a lot of things to this thing. It's really frustrating, actually. Also prevents spin, prevents defog, as I said before. Cresselia with Tera is actually terrifying because this thing is so bulky. It gets Moonlight, Trick Rooms up. It can honestly sponge a ton of hits, throw off Thunder Waves. It's really annoying. Umbreon is a Wish Baton Passer. Again, this team like really loves Umbreon because, you know, just Wish Baton passes into anyone that's low. It's gonna be hard to break through this team, I definitely will say. Magneton, as I said before, Magnet Pull, but also Analytic is pretty powerful. Articuno is a pretty decent Ice Flying type. It's got really great stats. Obviously, it's just weak to rocks, but with heavy duty boots, it can still be pretty powerful. Tyranitar is sub Sand for Houndstone. I really like Tyranitar too. There's some Dragon Dance sets. You can run it mixed as well that are really powerful, and it can do a lot of damage, and it can be a great wall too. It's very versatile. Fortress. Again, great that Magneton and Fortress are on the same team too, because Fortress can't get punished by Magnet Pull from other teams, although it did have Volt Switch. But Fortress is a great, you know, setting up hazards as well as Rapid Spinner. You know, besides that, I think, wait, did I forget to acknowledge Hazard Control again? Maybe I did. I think the only spinner is Fortress, which could end up being problematic. We will see. I think only having one spinner / defogger is pretty bad, but maybe Articuno gets defog? Hold up. Let me check. It does not get defog. Okay, so I think this team is also a little bit weak to hazards, especially Toxic Spikes. Now that I say that you don't have a Poison type and your only hazard control is Fortress, Toxic Spikes seem a little bit stronger against you. But we gonna see. Where was I at? Rabombi. Good for setting up Sticky Web, which sometimes this team can utilize, especially Gholdengo can really utilize this. I don't see how often the other guys really utilize it, but I think Gholdengo likes it. Rabombi's also really fast. I think it doesn't have Sleep Powder, but it has Stun Spore. Really fast and can throw off some strong Moonblast. Houndstone obviously with Sand Rush and Poltergeist this season. Really excited to see how this combo goes. So I think Houndstone Poltergeist can be really, really powerful. Brigson is like, I don't know, NFE fire type. It's probably not that great. It's slow and special attack is like decent, but it's never killing things. Cacturne, also a really cool Pokemon in the end. Sucker Punch Shenanigans. It can be physical or special, but it's so slow, which is really sad. But I do like that you got the mascot. So, gotta give a shout out to that. Really appreciate that. I will say, Crest being Tera is cool. Like, I will say it makes Cresselia a lot bulkier, a lot harder to deal with. But I think something that would have been interesting... Oh no, Houndstone was yellow anyway. Because I thought you could have gotten away with, like, having a green Houndstone, but no, unfortunately you can't. Yeah, then Crest isn't a bad option. But it's either that or like Magneton and Cacturne, which I think they had last season, so I do like that they switched it up. Crest is not bad. As a Tera captain. I thought Houndstone was green, but it's yellow, so Would have been cool to see like Houndstone be Tera, and then Tera Ghost probably goes ham in sand. But yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna give this team, I mean, it's very weak to fire, very weak to toxic spikes and some hazard setting. I'm gonna give this probably a 6 to 7, probably somewhere 6 to 7. But yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the next one. All right, next one is the Luscious Lopunnies. I do not have a what do you call it, a little logo yet, so I do apologize for that. Welcome to the league if you're watching this video as well. So going through the squad, they have Roaring Moon, Slowbro, Shaman, Blissey, Chargerbug, Corviknight, Cerulege, Klefkis, Frostlass. Oh, Cerulege is also their Tera captain. I believe it's Tera, Ghost, Bug, and Grass. Pretty good. Klefkis, Frostlass, Swallow, and Dugtrio. Obviously going through my little thing of fire, water, grass, so they do have Cerulege as a fire, water for Slowbro, grass is Shaman, fairy is Klefkis, dragon is Roaring Moon, steel is Klefkis, as well as Corviknight, which is great. Hazard setters and Stealth Rock Blissey, spikes is really powerful, and T-Spike Swallow is not bad. Hazard control I think is Corviknight with Defog, but it is quite a reliable defogger, so I think it's not terrible. Momentum, U-turn is like okay. Honestly, Chargerbug is only coming for the weeks that you need Sticky Web, so U-turn, Roaring Moon, and Corviknight it's like okay. And Blissey doesn't get Baton Pass, unfortunately. T-Spike Absorber is Swalot. So honestly, I thought Swalot was trash, and then I saw Santa Cruz use it last week, or not last week, last season. I'm like, okay, Swalot is actually a real Pokemon. So yeah, I actually really like Swalot. But this team obviously a bit weak to fire, but also you have Slowbro, which is a great fire check. Also a bit weak to ground, but again, great checks and Shaman and Corviknight. Rock, it is a little bit weak too, but you do have Klefkis. Ghost is also somewhat of a weakness, and Dark too, but it does have like some decent walls to deal with these threats. So it's not like a direct one-to-one if they just instantly lose. Because like they have some pretty solid mons to check those typings, so I don't think it's horrible. And also, why is Dugtrio 120 speed? Oh no, is that speed? Hold the phone. No, what is this? What stat is this? HP, attack, defenses. Oh, it is speed. Okay. Dugtrio is 120 speed? That's freaking insane. I never knew that. Yeah, Roaring Moon 119. Very good speed tiers here for the first 4. Not bad, not bad. Dugtrio does not have Arena Trap, by the way. But yeah, this team, honestly, it's pretty decent. Pretty decent. I mean, it got through the first basic 5. Momentum is a little bit weak, as well as, what else did I acknowledge? Hazard control, a little bit weak with Corviknight, but Corviknight is pretty reliable, but that just means that it might have to come like every week unless you're running heavy duty boots on everything. So we'll go through the individual Pokemon. Roaring Moon, dude, Roaring Moon is disgusting with knockoff. Dragon Dance can actually do a lot of different things, but it just hits hard, especially now that it has knockoff. You can run like Choice Band. It's so fast too. Really annoying Pokemon to deal with. Slowbro, obviously great regenerator, bulky water, can also do like quite a bit of damage. It's got decent special attack at 100, so it can be really quite an annoying Pokemon to deal with. Shaman is like kind of underrated to me. It's like a weird grass type where it's got like decent coverage for a grass type. Like I think it has Earth Power, obviously Seed Flare, Leech Seed, Synthesis. I mean, base 100 down the board is not bad either. Obviously no hidden powers really suck for it, but it's still pretty decent. Blissey, obviously the big blob is a great special defensive wall. Beyond that, I'm not sure what it does. You know, I think it does Wish, and you don't get Baton Pass, but I do think you can Wish. It's just a little bit harder to pass those wishes off. Chargerbug, obviously here for Sticky Webs, but I do support him being here. Look how adorable he is. Does he actually have decent defense? He's also like one of these weird Pokemon that have decent defense, so like with Eviolite he probably lives a hit, like a hit or two at least. So Chargerbug is kind of cool. Corviknight, obviously, solid mon, defogger, body press, can do a couple different things. It's a little bit one-dimensional, that it's always being a wall in some way, and then it kind of wants to U-turn out or defog or whatever. It does have bulk up too, so pretty good Pokemon. Ceruledge, I also have on my team. You know, what is it called? Little shout out to myself. Sneaky plug in there. Ceruledge, I really think is powerful, especially with Poltergeist. Tera Ghost is like actually disgusting. Bug is kind of weird, and Grass is good because like you can hit bulky waters as well as ground types, which Ceruledge struggles with. Klefkis, obviously great for screens, prankster shenanigans. Screens also work really well with like whether Ceruledge wants to Swords Dance up or Roaring Moon wants to Dragon Dance. It can be really powerful. Frostloss is a great spiker lead. Can also do some decent damage too. I mean, Ice Ghost is really good offensively. Can set up spikes and then Dusty Bond out and just, you know, pick off some free kills. Swala, as I said before, this thing is like actually ridiculously bulky and can toxic things, body press, and I think it even gets toxic spikes. So yeah, it does. And then Dugtrio Lola, or no, not Dugtrio, Dugtrio. Will probably never come, but it is really fast, so potentially like maybe choice band Dugtrio into a team that's weak to ground can be really powerful. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Luscious Lopunnies. Welcome to the league. As well as, what would I rate this team? I think it's pretty good. I'd probably give it a 7 to 8 out of 10. I don't think it's terrible. So yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the next one. All right, next we have the Caborca Gengars. Oof, my voice is dying out. They have a Great Tusk, Enamorous Tea, Ninetales, Appleton, Shiftry as their Tera captains, or one of their 2 Tera captains, with Tera Flying, Fire, and Steel. Crocalor is Tera Fire, Grass, and Water. Arcanine, Hisui, Gengar, Hoopa, and Tatsugiri. So this is also one of those weird fire teams that, like, you know, I have to, you know, kind of smack down on because I don't like sun teams. I think they're really hard to use because if your opponent finds a way to get rid of your sun, then you're kind of like uh-oh'd. But this team, you know, does seem to hit very hard. Great Tusk in the sun hits like a truck. We'll look at Fire, Water, Grass. I mean, we already know, you know, Crocalor, Arcanine, Hisui, Ninetales, Fire, Tatsugiri, Water, Shiftry, Appleton, Grass, Fairy, Enamorous Tea, Dragon is Appleton, Steel is no Steel. Yeah, no Steel. Hazard Setter, Stealth Rock. It's kind of sad that Great Tusk has to run Stealth Rock or either Arcanine or Sui because they don't want to run Stealth Rock. So I would say Hazard Setters are not the best. Toxic Spikes is like pretty decent on Shiftry. I think Shiftry also gets a normal spike, does it not? Or maybe not. But Shiftry can be a good lead. Gengar, also T-Spike. It doesn't want to run T-Spike most of the time. Hazard Control, you know, Spin on Tusk. I think Shiftry gets Defog. And then Tatsugiri is a spinner. It's not bad. This one is a little bit less weak to hazards because it has options. Compared to the other Sun team. It's kind of interesting. We have 2 Sun teams. I can't wait for them to battle each other. Momentum. No momentum on this team. That's pretty rough. T-Spike Absorber would obviously be Gengar, which is pretty good. But yeah, looking at this team, I mean, water weakness, but also water immunity. It's a little bit rough. Ground weakness. There's a lot of weaknesses whenever you run a Sun team. That people can take advantage of, basically. But, you know, they can, you know, potentially work around it depending on the matchup. I think it's just a little bit more difficult to prep for because, you know, most opponents know that you're going to bring Sun every week. But I do know that this person has been able to get off a lot of sweeps in the past. So I would not put it past them to, you know, actually make this team work. Great Tusk, I guess we'll go through the team or the members individually. Great Tusk is literally the GOAT. Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, Headlong Rush, Close Combat. That thing is a monster. And like Rapid Spin just boosts its slightly bad speed, which makes it actually a really powerful Pokemon. Enamorous Tea can really set up with like Iron Defense, Calm Mind shenanigans too. Really powerful Pokemon. Yeah, can set up on your face and does not care. Ninetales obviously is setting up the Drought. I honestly don't know whether I like Ninetales more than Torkoal. I mean, it's obviously faster and can deal more damage in case like something is weak. So it's like Torkoal, if it comes out on something that is like, you know, dies to a hit, Torkoal's slow, so it's always going to take that residual damage, whereas Ninetales can actually just come in, it's faster, and it might be able to pick off some kills while setting up the sun, so it does like 2 rules in 1. Appleton, pretty decent. It does have access to Recover and Leech Seed compared to Dipplin, so I do like Appleton, I think, more than Flapple as well. Thick Fat is also a pretty good ability, weakens your ice resistance a little bit less, although you're still 2 times weak. Shiftry and Chlorophyll, as well as Windrider, really good abilities. They have Tera, Flying, Fire, and Steel. I can't remember exactly what typing Shiftry deals with the least. I think it's probably Steel types, that's why they run Tera Fire. But Tera Fire in the Sun sounds really cool. You can also run Chlorophyll, but I think Shiftry is also... No. Shiftry does appreciate this Chlorophyll, because AB base speed is pretty slow. I mean, it's like decent, but it's still somewhat slow. Crocolore as Fire, Grass, and Water, I think that's really good too, although it is weak to Knockoff, and a lot of people got Knockoff back. But I do think Crocolore is actually a really powerful wall, and a really great Pokemon. Arcanine, Hisui, and the Sun. I mean, Arcanine Hisui is like one of those Pokemon which does hit really hard, especially with Rockhead. You can run Intimidate and Flash Fire, but Rockhead is like one of those abilities, you know, you always run Head Smash, you always run Flare Blitz. But the problem is like Arcanine is just a little bit weak enough where it's never able to pick up the KOs that it wants to. So I think that's its major problem, as well as it does have a hard time dealing with bulky waters. Gengar, obviously really powerful Pokemon. I think it still gets Nasty Plot, so there is potential for Nasty Plot sweeps, and I absolutely love Hoopa to death. It has like 4 times weaknesses to like some really common typings, but it's such a cool Pokemon. Really like Hoopa, and I hope it works out. I'm a Hoopa stan. And then Tatsugiri, I don't really like Tatsugiri, but also he's on my team, so I have to like him. But yeah, Tatsugiri is a decent spinner, but he's a little bit one-dimensional. So but yeah, I'm gonna give this team a 7 to 6. I would say it's definitely better than the other Sun team though, so like maybe 7. I don't know, it's a hard judgment, but I'm not a full supporter of the Sun team, so I am excited to see what they can do this season. So let's move on to the next one. All right, next up we have the Florida Flamigos. They have Ogerpon Wellspring, Quaquaval as their Tera captain with Tera options of Tera Water, Fairy, and Fighting. They have Decidueye, Hisui, Leafeon, Raichu, Cloth, Ursaluna Blood Moon, Meowscarada, Farigiraf, and Samurott. So this team, we'll go through my basic 5s, and then I'll say my parts. So no fire type for the Fire, Water, Grass core. Obviously we have a lot of water types, we have a lot of grass type. Fairy, Dragon, Steel, we are missing a Fairy, we are missing a Dragon, and we are missing a Steel. Hazard setters, all we have is Stealth Rock and Spikes. Spikes are okay. Stealth Rock's Cloth is never really coming every match, so it's a little bit weak on that end. Hazard control, you know, Quaquaval is a decent rapid spinner. Decidueye is also a decent defogger. Besides that, those are the only 2, so not terrible hazard control. Momentum, 4 U-turners, those are all really good U-turners. And then no T-Spike absorber, so this Pokemon, this team is extremely weak to T-Spike too. I will say, so those are like my basic 5. It did not pass the basic 5, so I do think this team is going to struggle, but potentially it could still pick up some wins. I think the biggest problem that I have with this team is the amount of duplicate typings it has. It has 4 grass types, 3 water types. That is really not beneficial to you because you can see, like, you know, you're super weak to Bug, which is like U-turn typing. That's like a momentum move. Super weak to Fairy. Like, these are very common typings. You know, Flying, Poison, Fighting, Ice. These are like somewhat common typings, especially since you don't have a Fighting immunity, meaning someone can just like Choice Scarf a Fighting type, bring it out, and just spam it. Of course, you have Quaquaval, which can Tera and a Fairy, but it's not reliable because Quaquaval does not have a great way of recovery. So yeah, like, your opponents can very easily lock themselves into moves and do heavy damage to your team. You do have some fast speed tiers. Meowscarada, Wellspring, Raichu, Leafeon is not terrible. But yeah, I think you just have so many duplicate typings and a lot of Pokemon that are playing the same role that I'm not the biggest fan of this team for sure. I mean, yeah, we're also missing a lot of key resistances like U-turn, bug resist, sorts of things like that. Yeah, and I just feel like there's way too many duplicate typings on this team. I feel like you can swap out a lot of different Pokemon here. I mean, you already have Ogerpon, Wellspring, and then you're like grabbing Quaquaval and Samurott at the end. Like, Samurott doesn't need to be here. Leafeon doesn't need to be here. Maybe Decidueye Hisui doesn't need to be here. Even maybe Meowscarada, because that's just like an additional. Like, you don't want too many duplicate typings because obviously you're super weak to stuff. But you know, we gonna see. But I'm not the biggest fan of this team because there's a lot of common weaknesses, and especially like Dragon. Dragon is a really strong typing in this format, and you know, Dragon can do a lot of damage to this team. But yeah, without further ado, let's go into the individual pieces of this team. Ogerpon Wellspring, I mean, I got him on my draft. Pretty good Pokemon, I gotta say. Yeah, pretty decent. Really powerful with Swords Dance. Can do a lot of damage. Quaquaval can get some Moxie sweeps going, especially with the Tera options. I think that was like their main objective, is they want to do some Tera sweeps. Which can happen, especially with Algostat Moxie. It's just a little bit hard to get going because I think it does get Swords Dance. But the coverage is like, you know, Water, Fighting, Ice, and it does get access to Knockoff now. But there are some typings that you miss there. Basically, Bulky Waters can 1v1 Quaquaval. Decidueye, Hisui, really interesting Pokemon, especially with Scrappy. But, you know, Defog is nice, but I never really liked this Pokemon because it's a little bit too slow for me. And typing is just like really, I mean, very weak to flying, which flying can also just be like a very easy coverage move for some Pokemon to slap on. But next is Leafeon, Wish Baton Pass supporter, Raichu as a good Volt Switcher as well as an electric immunity. Cloth is kind of weird, like Regenerator or Anger Shell, you could potentially get some sweeps off, but it's not that great. Cloth has decent attack, decent defense, but everything else is kind of bad. Ursaluna Blood Moon is a absolute beast. Like, looking at this team on paper, like, it has a lot of great Pokemon, like Ogerpon Wellspring, Ursaluna Blood Moon, Meowscarada, Quaquaval. Like, those are some Pokemon that really hit hard, but it's just like the synergy is not there. The Ursaluna Blood Moon, again, as I said, really hits hard. Blood Moon, Earth Power, Calm Mind, Vacuum Wave, you know, it can do some other things, Moonblast, Moonlight, but it is very slow, so Pokemon can capitalize on this thing, especially, you know, someone has access to Grass Knot. This thing's taking a lot of damage. Meowscarada, obviously one of the greatest draft Pokemon of all time. Protean, T-Spikes, Spikes, can do a lot of things. Flower Trick is so overpowered too. I really like Meowscarada, actually. Next up is Farigiraf. It's pretty much either a wall, Wish Baton Pass. It's pretty much never offensive, even though it has a really high special attack stat. But it's just so slow that it's going to take... It takes a lot of effort to get Farigiraf to really do some damage. And which you'd rather have that EVs than something else. And then finally, Samurott. I never liked Samurott. I never know what it does. Especially since this one is just so weak. Ceaseless Edge. I don't even understand why it was worth so much being in... How much was it worth? 90? Like, how is that thing worth 90? Compared to, like, Farigiraf also being 90. Like, I don't even know what Samurott does, but there's no way it's good. I think it does get, like, Swords Dance and Bulk Up. Maybe it gets Bulk Up, but, like, man, Samurott is not a good Pokemon, in my opinion. So I'm being a little bit harsh against Samurott, but that's just the way it is. So I think for this team, I'm probably going to give it a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Yeah, I think there's a lot of key weaknesses that this team definitely needs to make some trades for. So, yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the next one. All right, next up we have Tokyo Teddiursas. Shout out Kuma. I love their logo, by the way. They have a Gliscor, Hydreigon, Delphox, Frostmoth as their Tera captain with Tera, Ice, Ground, and Water. Really great Tera types. Girafarig, Annihilate, which Annihilate is super broken. Sylveon, Toedscruel, Tauros, Paldea, Aqua, and then Weezing as another Tera captain with Tera Poison, Fairy, and Steel. Let's go through my basics. Fire, Water, Grass. Delphox is the fire. Toedscruel is the grass. Paldea, Tauros is a water. Fairy, Dragon, Steel. Sylveon is the fairy. Hydreigon is the dragon. And I think there's no steel, but I think there is... yeah, Weezing can be the steel type, potentially. It takes, you know, obviously you have to sacrifice a Tera, but it can be a steel if need be. Hazard setters, really great hazard setters. Stealth Rock Spikes, I mean, these are some really great hazard setters. Especially Gliscor is one of the best hazard setters in the game. Hazard control, I think it's a little bit lacking. Oh no, Toad Scroll is there for Rapid Spin. It's a little bit on the weaker side though. I don't think Weezing gets defog, does it? No. I know for a fact it doesn't, because I have the Weezing Galera version, and I know it doesn't get defog. And I don't think Gliscor gets defog either, right? Maybe it did though. I know it didn't get Roost. Did it? Okay, it didn't get defog. Okay. So yeah, a little bit weak on terms of hazard control, only having one spinner, meaning that Toad Scroll is gonna have to come most weeks. But I do like all the hazards that it has, because Annihilate can block spin, because it's a ghost type, and then with Defiant it also can prevent some defoggers from going for that move, because obviously then you give Annihilate +2 attack, which then it will run a rampage on your team. Momentum, decent momentum users. All this U-turn I really like. T-Spec Absorber is Weezing, depending on when it doesn't run Levitate. It's okay, it's not horrible, but Weezing also doesn't come many weeks, so T-Spec is a little bit powerful here, but again, it depends on the matchup. They have a lot of flying types. Gliscor Flying, Hydreigon, Levitate. It doesn't, like, you know, destroy the whole team, so it's not horrible. But going through the individual thing, when I first looked at this team, I was like, wow, this team is really solid, but obviously is very, very weak to flying. I don't know how common flying is. Also, my chair is like, I really need to put some grease on my chair. This is like really annoying me. Flying types, obviously really powerful against this team, as well as like slight weakness to fairy. Delphox is like okay against most fairy type moves, but Delphox isn't the most bulkiest Pokemon of all time. But yeah, flying types this team does not like whatsoever. I don't know how powerful the flying types are this generation. I'm trying to think of like really powerful flying types off the top of my head, but you know, obviously having this really bad weakness obviously means that you're prone to people just spamming those type of moves or locking into Choice Scarf, Choice Band, blah blah blah, and you basically have no resist. It gives them more of like a direct path of doing damage to you, although it isn't like one-to-one. This team is also a little bit slower, but it's not terrible. I mean, you do have a couple that break one Pokemon that breaks 100, and then two others that break 100 speed. It's not terrible, but it is a little bit slow. I do really like Frostmoth as a Tera Captain. I think that really allows it to have really good chances to sweep most games. And then Weezing can also be really nice because, you know, Fairy and Steel are some of the bulkiest types in the game, which Weezing really likes. Because potentially, you know, Weezing, I think with Levitate, is only weak to Psychic. And then you Tera Steel, obviously you're weak to Fighting and Fire now, but you at least get rid of one of Steel's weaknesses, and Steel has a lot of great resist. So I do quite like this team. I don't think it's bad, but it is quite weak to Flying. And now let's go through the individual nitty gritty. Gliscor always running Poison Heal, Toxic Orb. It can also Toxic Back, Toxic Earthquake, can even run like Swords Dance, Facade, really powerful. U-turn. Hydreigon I have on my team, so I gotta say Hydreigon's the GOAT, best Pokemon in the game. You know, Dragon, Flash Cannon, Dark Pulse, all that type of stuff. Delphox with Magician could be cool depending on what item you run, but this thing can actually do a lot of damage. Frostmoth, as I said, with Ice Skills has really good chances to Quiver Dance Sweep. Girafarig, decent Sap Sipper, also potentially, like, do you ever run Early Bird? Maybe for Spore matchups, but then you just have Toad Scroll anyway. And then you could even run Sap Sipper again, so why would I even say that? Girafarig as a Wish Baton Passer. Annihilate, I think, is just such a broken Pokemon. You can basically bring it every week, and it's always going to be good. Especially because the Rage Fists, Bulk Up, Rest, like, you can do whatever you want with it, and it's a really great Pokemon. Fighting Ghost also hits everything neutrally. I don't think there's a single Pokemon in the game that doesn't get hit by neutrally by those stabs. Maybe... Yeah, no. I think every single Pokemon in the game gets hit neutrally by Fighting and Ghost, which is so busted. But Sylveon, great Fairy type, Wish supports that, but also can be really powerful, like Pixelate Specs. Toedscool, I also have on my team, so I gotta say he's the best Pokemon ever. Rapid Spin, Spore, Spikes, can do a couple things. Tauros Paldea Aqua, also really, really good Pokemon. Intimidate and can sweep with like Bulk Up, Trailblaze, all sorts of stuff like that. And then Weezing, you know, has great abilities and great typing too. So I think overall, I would give this a 7, probably a 7. Really bad flying weakness. Fairy is also kind of quite common, but not everyone has an offensive fairy type, so I'd probably say 7 or 8. But yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the next one. All right, finally, for the final team, the Delaware Dusknoirs with their team of Hatterene, Kleavor, Melodic, Gligar, Dunsparce, Ogerpon, Hearthflame, Heatran, Orthworm, Avalugg, Hisui as their Tera captain, or one of their Tera captains, with Rock, Poison, and Ghost. And then Electrode is another Tera captain with Electric, Ice, and Grass. And then Quaxwell as their final pick. So let's go through the basics. Fire, Water, Grass, Heatran, Milotic, and then Hearthflame. Fairy, Dragon, Steel. So we have Hatterene. I don't think we have a Dragon type. That's okay. Some teams can make it work. Heatran and Earthworm are great steel types. Hazard setters, lots of hazard setters on this team. Looks awesome. Hazard control, I believe Gligar does not get defog. Kleavor actually gets defog, surprisingly. Hatterene as Magic Bounce could also be really powerful. And I think, oh, Avalugg Hisui actually gets Rapid Spin. So does Quaxwell. So decent spinners, although I don't think you're always bringing Quaxwell. But Avalugg Hisui could actually come more because it is a Tera option now. So pretty decent hazard control. Momentum, U-turn, Volt Switch. I mean, honestly, these aren't terrible. Ogerpon and obviously Kleavor are really powerful with U-turn, as well as Volt Switch Electrode can be powerful too. This team does not have a T-Spike Absorber, which I do think is quite problematic, but you know, as long as you get Hatterene off on the Magic Bounce, you can prevent it. I do think having a way of getting rid of Toxic Spikes is very important. Now we can go into the individualistic package. It's obviously a little bit weak to Water type, but obviously Melodic. Weak to Fighting type, but also, you know, there are some checks here, but I'm just saying that these are some pretty big weaknesses. I would say even for ground, I mean, Orthworm is a great check to ground though. Gligar is also pretty decent, but you know, once these Mons are gone, definitely something to be careful of. But I mean, all teams have weaknesses. Also, no resistance to Dark. Everything takes it neutrally, which I think is quite scary. As well as Ghosts. These can be very offensive types that your opponent can run. That can do a lot of damage to your team. Just FYI. Oof, my throat is like, ugh. I'm like really running out of steam. Okay, let's do this. We got it. Let's pull through. Okay. Let's go through the one by one of this squad. Hatterene, obviously great with Magic Bounce, can even set up Trick Room, which this team honestly has a lot of benefits to Trick Room, to be honest. A lot of great Pokemon that might be able to use it. It just hits like a truck and can also like Calm Mind, that type of shenanigans. Kleavor is really powerful with Sharpness, one of the best leads I think in the game, and after a Swords Dance, and it also gets Trailblaze now. I think I had it before, but it's a really powerful Pokemon. I don't think you ever run Sheer Force. Maybe there's like some weird sets where you do, but Sharpness is just really powerful. X-Scissor, and then like the, what is it? The Rock Blade, whatever, that sets up Stealth Rocks. Milotic, great Pokemon, competitive or Marvel scale, really great. Really bulky, does get Recover too, as well as Haze, and I think it does have access to Scald now. Don't quote me on that, but I do really like Melodic. Gligar, great hazard setter. It's basically like Gliscor, but a little bit worse because it doesn't have Poison Heal, but it can poison things as well as can't roost, but it can, like, you know, protect Toxic, set up Spikes. Really annoying Pokemon, and it's quite fast too at 85. Dunsparce, obviously Coil Evilite sets we've seen last season are absolutely deadly. Dunsparce is like just as good as Dunsparce, like no joke. Really great Pokemon. Stealth Rock can do a whole bunch of things. I do really love Dunsparce. Ogerpon Hearthflame was banned in OU. Really excited to see how well it does in draft. I know it hits like a truck, especially after it sets up a Swords Dance. So excited to see how that goes. Heatran, really solid Pokemon. I think it's like one of the Pokemon that has the most resist in the game. Obviously has some key weaknesses though, but still a great Pokemon. And I really love Earthworm too. I think Earthworm Earth Eater is so freaking cool. I think that Pokemon can run some Coil sets, Iron Defense, Body Press, some really cool sets though. Avalugg Hisui I thought was a terrible Pokemon, but obviously when you Tera, it's actually really, really solid as a defensive wall. I don't know what other moves that it runs, but I'm sure it does something. Electrode, really fast Electric type, also really great to have Tera options for because it's a little bit weak, but it's extremely fast. Like in terms of damage wise, it's a little bit weak, but very, very fast Pokemon. And then Quaxwell just as a backup spinner. I'm pretty sure Quaxwell like almost never comes most weeks, but it's there to show face and to show other teams, hey, like maybe potentially I do have a rapid spinner in the back, which might be useful. So overall, I think this team probably a 7 to 8, I would say. You know, there are a couple weaknesses in terms of like dealing with common water, ground types, goes dark. But other than that, I think the team is quite solid. I think it's offensively pretty strong, and I think it could do a lot of damage. So yeah, without further ado, that is the Kalos Conference. Again, I will be doing weekly game reviews with the Frederick Klefkis. We'll be going back and forth. I'll make sure like the weeks that I didn't do it, I have a link to his video so that you guys can watch that as well. Make sure to stay tuned for my run in the Unova Conference. Should be some exciting stuff. I actually have a battle later tonight, which my brain is like so fuzzed, but it's fine. It's fine, because I've just been making shorts and doing videos all day. But yeah, I really am excited. Also, I think this doc to check your weaknesses and stuff is in the PBO Discord, so make sure to check that out too. Or I'll also probably put it in the description below. But yeah, stay tuned for more PBO content. And without further ado, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Peace.